Some of Hollywood's most magical movie moments are created using optical effects.
I mean, it would be like that, right?
Elements which could never be shot together are filmed separately and seamlessly combined into a single image.
Now in complete control!
Almost every film ever made contains a number of optical effects, and sometimes that number is in the hundreds. Four-time Academy Award winner Ken Ralston is known as a modern-day master of optical illusions. Today, we'll catch up with Ken as he embarks on a new project at his longtime home, George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic. And we'll learn how Ken's groundbreaking work for Death Becomes Her made heads turn. Coming up, we unveil the secrets of Hollywood's optical magicians on Movie Magic. While there are many types of optical effects, one of the most widely used is the composite, which involves blending two or more pieces of film into a single image. This process is not as simple as it sounds. This scene from Return of the Jedi was created by combining a shot of Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia on a speeder bike with a separately filmed background. Industrial Light and Magic optical supervisor John Ellis was an optical cameraman on this action-packed sequence.
The background was shot with a camera mounted on a Steadicam, and the Steadicam allowed the operator to walk through the forest and not get the vibrations up and down of a person walking, and then taking a frame every few seconds speeds up the action. It makes it look like you're sailing through there at 150 miles an hour. The actors were shot here at ILM in our stage against a blue screen. That allows us to make elements that would later be used in compositing the actors into the background that has been speeded up or up to real time at 24 frames a second. After the elements are shot, elements are brought into the optical department. We will composite them here on this optical printer. This printer is a special piece of equipment that was built by Industrial Light and Magic and was originally used on Empire Strikes Back. If we just simply double expose the two images, we'd have a ghost image, or you would see through the trees, you'd see through the speeder bikes. So we have to go through a matting process to hold the area where we want to put the people back in.
The matting process that John utilizes involves 3 steps. First, he must imprint a silhouette of the speeder bikes, called a holdout mat, onto the tree background. Next, the blue background is removed from the speeder bike shot. Finally, the isolated speeder bikes are printed onto the background, replacing the silhouette and completing the shot.
Compositing is really a great thing because you can put people in environments that don't exist. You can change the environment, you can make it faster or slower, you can make it day or night. There's an unlimited amount of things that you can do to manipulate how people are in space and time.
One of Return of the Jedi's effects supervisors was Ken Ralston. After winning an Academy Award for Jedi, Ken went on to capture 3 more Oscars for Cocoon, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Death Becomes Her.
I have a background that I understand all the different effects that can be done. And it's just a matter of knowing what those can accomplish and what best benefits a particular shot.
Ken started experimenting with optical effects at the age of 14 with his no-budget film, The Bounds of Imagination, which he made with friend Glenn Anderson.
We flipped a coin to see who would be in the show. Unfortunately, I won the toss, or lost the toss, so I had to be in it. So we were just going crazy. We had all these split screens in it and double exposures. We had to run off into the closet backed the film up by hand and started at the first part of each roll and then timed back to where we thought our split screens would take place.
In the early 1970s, Ken met Dennis Muren, who talked about working with George Lucas on a new film called Star Wars.
Dennis brought me on as a camera assistant. We had no idea what Star Wars would turn into. It floored us. It was absolutely the greatest experience.
Following the success of Star Wars, Ken worked as an effects cameraman on The Empire Strikes Back. 3 years later, he rose to the rank of effects supervisor on The Return of the Jedi. By this time, George Lucas had firmly established his preeminent special effects company, Industrial Light and Magic, or ILM.
As George got comfortable with how to go about doing some of the effects shots, that caused Empire Strikes Back to expand to a certain degree. And based on that, when Jedi came along, it went through the roof. We had 3 supervisors doing it, Richard Edlund, Dennis Muren, and myself. And we each took a sequence or a segment of the movie to do because it was so big. The main sequence that I was responsible for was the space battle sequence. Compared to the other space battles in the previous films, this one was much larger, had a lot more separate elements, a lot more ships involved. But because of the sheer number of spaceships and how many passes it has to go through the optical printer, any little error can cause a screw-up. The blue screen, if it isn't exactly right, well, your mats don't work quite right. The color balance, if one ship isn't timed just right in amongst 50 ships, then you have to do the whole shot over again if you can see it. There's always some little problem that can come up, and some of the shots have mistakes in them, but you can't see them.
Despite its limitations, Ken and the ILM crew were able to use the optical printer to bring the Star Wars saga to a thrilling conclusion. In the early days, composite shots for films like The Great Train Robbery were done right inside the camera. Director Edwin S. Porter shot the moving background first, covering a portion of the lens. He then rewound the film, covered the other portion of the lens, and shot the actors. In the 1930s, filmmakers began to realize that the printer could be used to combine images. Linwood Dunn, a cameraman at the time, quickly became known as the finest practitioner of optical effects, with films such as Bringing Up Baby.
The optical printer was used in Bringing Up Baby because they found early in the film that the trained leopard was a little too dangerous to have in with the principal actors. The shot, for example, where up in the hallway, Cary Grant walks through, gets in an elevator, the leopard follows him, and then Hepburn follows the leopard, were all shot separately, but we always had to shoot the leopard first because we wanted to see how fast he walked.
Dunn went on to create complex opticals for nearly 1,000 films, including Cimarron, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Orson Welles' Citizen Kane.
On Citizen Kane, when Orson Welles came to the studio, of course he never heard of an optical printer, and finally one day we introduced him to it and let him know that it was a magic machine and there many things could be done with it. He would ask for actually ridiculous things that from a practical standpoint you wouldn't attempt them, and I would say no, it isn't practical to do. And he'd say to me, is it impossible? And I'd say nothing's impossible, it's just a matter of time and money.
In the political rally scene, Dunn used his optical printer to combine live-action elements of Welles, the people in the aisles, and actor Ray Collins with matte paintings of the poster of Welles and the seated audience.
One of the more interesting shots recreated in post-production was the one where the camera went up the side of the building in the storm, over the roof, and through the skylight down into the nightclub. They were 2 separate scenes, and when Welles wanted to combine it into a continuous scene, I introduced a synthetic lightning flash on the optical printer, combined it by an out-of-focus mix with the reverse zoom going down into the nightclub.
By the year 1942, dozens of optical printers were in use in Hollywood. Each one of these printers was custom designed. Linwood Dunn was hired to create an optical printer which could be mass-produced by the military.
The need for an optical printer in the training films in World War II became very apparent when directors like Frank Capra got into the service in the Signal Corps. And they were commissioned to make certain kind of training films and propaganda films. And so they were used to having the certain sophistication that motion pictures have. They couldn't order them because it was not a shelf item like a camera. So Kodak commissioned me to design printers and see that they were manufactured for the United States government.
The Acme Dunn optical printer quickly became the standard, and Dunn was honored with an Academy Technical Achievement Award, which was upgraded to an Oscar in 1981.
I believe I've been very lucky in my career because it covered a good many years from the silent days through sound and into all this new technology. But I think the most rewarding part of it is the number of wonderful people that I've worked with. I loved what I did, and I have the benefit of tremendous satisfaction because I can look on the screen today and see things I did.
Well, we can have the eyes move, the hands. If you extended this shirt out to here a little bit more, then we could then puppeteer, make the, do all the joints inside the clothes so it doesn't look bad.
That's a great idea.
Like Linwood Dunn, Ken Ralston is an effects artist who specializes in compositing multiple images into a single eye-catching shot.
It might be nicer to get more happening in here so we could do more, bend his arm a little bit more. So it's not just such a stiff feeling like that. Out of all the puppets we have, this one has the potential to do a little more movement than some of them do. That's why I want to try.
Today, Ken is starting work on a big-budget television commercial that will require some elaborate composite shots. The most difficult shot involves combining an animated doll, a toy car, and a computer-generated soldier into a scene where a toy army attacks a refrigerator filled with sparkling water.
You're going to shoot all the cars except the green car, and then plop this car in between the
Right. It's better for the lighting problems that the shiny cars are going to have. It's better to get the toy cars, as many on the set as we can, instead of blue screening them in later.
It's great working with Ken. One, because it's fun. He's really funny. The other is that technically he knows what he's doing. Any image is possible to get with him, and it just makes it, for an art director, really exciting.
After looking over the storyboards, Ken works with the ILM model makers. It is their task to produce a collection of antique toys which will be brought to life.
Have him be more active, like sitting here and then he runs back here and he sneaks out here and he runs in and he sneaks out here and he's just kind of trying to get a peek through all this stuff. So can I see that by this afternoon?
Ken engages model maker Richard Miller to produce an antique doll that will be animated with elaborate mechanics.
She's also going to be in the last shot in the commercial, and Richard's sculpting her up, the mechanical puppet to be used, so, out of modeling clay, and then cast it in.
Fiberglass shell, so you can put the mechanics in the inside.
The eyes will move.
This is a radio-controlled eye mechanism for our doll's eye movement. What happens is this transmitter will send a signal to this little motor, and the motor turns the arm, which in turn rotates these eyes right and left. So what this means is we don't have to have rods or anything going into the head. We can just, by way of moving these joysticks on the transmitter here, we can have control over that.
The doll will ride in a model Citron, fabricated by veteran ILM model maker Ira Keeler.
Like it's a chrome-plated tin on the toy. Mm-hmm. Because
that's fine. The more toy-like, the better. We're going to shoot this car blue screen. Camera will be on this side looking at it. It'll have a nice chassis bounce to it, so it looks like it's having some trouble.
Once complete, the car and the dolls are filmed in front of a blue screen. The blue screen will be replaced with a background shot. But for this composite, a computer will be used to combine the elements instead of an optical printer. With an optical printer, the blue screen is removed photographically. But digital compositing involves converting the image to ones and zeros and eliminating the blue background electronically. Optical printers also require composited film to be developed before the composite shot can be seen. Digital compositing allows every step of the process to be displayed on screen instantaneously.
In optical, if you have an error on your mat, you have to go back and spend an entire day rebuilding all your different elements. In digital, you can see an error and immediately correct it, so the time is reduced tremendously on how long it takes to do a shot.
That's perfect. Perfect. Send it, ship it, final.
Yow!
While most of the elements in this project are physical models shot blue screen, Ken Ralston has decided that the toy soldier will be created entirely as CGI, or computer-generated imagery. First, a scale model is scanned into the computer to create a three-dimensional digital image of the soldier. Next, ILM computer graphics supervisor Doug Smythe and animator Joe Pasquale add color, detail, and motion to the figure.
Something strange about our arm action here, even though you matched it to what they were doing.
It's a bit extreme in the forward position, I think. It almost looks like they're hyperextending or popping their elbows.
This one especially. He's not swinging all the way back. He's just going like that, like he's got a kink in his arms.
With Ken's input, the CGI team completes the animation. Finally, all of the CGI and live-action elements are combined together digitally. This involves electronically removing the blue screen and matting each isolated element onto the background. The result is a perfectly rendered CGI soldier, brought to life in a mechanical toyland of epic proportions. While commercials like this one astound television audiences, today's moviegoers also demand increasingly spectacular images.
The way these films seem to unravel is that the technology to do the film a year earlier could not have been done. And we had to do a lot of extensive tests to see if it was even possible now.
In Death Becomes Her, Ken Ralston and the ILM team collaborated with director Robert Zemeckis on a project that offered unprecedented effects challenges.
That's the reason for squaring her off. Right. And that's why I'm afraid of...
I approached the illusion in Death Becomes Her from a storytelling point of view. I mean, I presented the screenplay to the effects team, and I said, here's what I'd like to see.
One of Ken's most difficult challenges was to create a 6-inch hole in actress Goldie Hawn's torso. This effect would require advanced compositing technology.
Just look at me. I'm soaking wet.
But ILM's greatest challenge was the sequence in which actress Meryl Streep falls down a flight of stairs and twists her head backwards.
You know, a six-headed creature from Mars, you can do anything you want because you've never seen it. But a person with a subtle problem, even though their head's twisted around 180 degrees, it's still not outrageous enough to distract your eye very much, and it had to be blended in just perfectly with a lot of computer graphics work.
You pushed me down the stairs.
The twisted head scene with Meryl is so complicated, it would take hours just to describe all the little things that are going on in it. The way it broke down in its simplest form was we shot the master scene with Meryl Streep with a blue hood on, just to give us a starting point to mat out her head.
It's... You pushed me down the stairs!
That was wild because we had to come in on one day and shoot the scene. It happened to be the day my mother was visiting the set. So I was trying to explain this to her. She said, why the hell do you have a bag over your head? I come to watch you, they pay you all this money, you're acting with a bag over your head.
Next, Ralston had the crew shoot a plate, which is a shot of the same background without the actors. After Doug Smythe digitally removes Meryl's hooded head, the plate is used to replace the hood with the proper background. Then, Meryl must perform the scene with her head isolated.
Walking, 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 walking.
Ernest. Ernest.
Ernest!
You pushed me down the stairs.
We have her in a blue bodysuit to match the blue around so we can extract the whole area around her head and leaving just the cut off at the neck. And speaking of neck work, here's the computer graphics neck just dancing around in place. We had to load the background plate into the computer animation program and then painstakingly move this model shape over the background.
As you can see, her ponytail's being cut off a lot in the back behind her shoulders here, so we had to actually replace most of the ponytails in this whole sequence with an additional ponytail that was match moved in.
Once all of the elements are filmed separately, they are composited in the computer. The result is another Oscar for the ILM team.
You pushed me down the stairs.
At ILM, the spectacular has become the expected. But that doesn't stop Ken Ralston and his cohorts from continuing to look forward.
And you're always trying to push that envelope, give the audience and the production people something that will, be unique. And trying to find that next unique image is a constant challenge. And I think that keeps us, those juices flowing. And it's what drives us crazy, and I think it's what inspires us the most.